Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the third session of hashtag Learn from Doers webinar series by Ascent members. Like I kept mentioning from Monday onwards, when we have been doing this very special series with our own members who are experts and thought leaders in their own space who are bringing this content along with us for you. We have done one on Monday. On using LinkedIn for B2B lead generation. We did yesterday one on how do you have elastic content and how your one content can go a long way in getting you the right brand, building right brand equity for you. Today we have a very special speaker, Pankit Desai, who is the co-founder of Secure Tech, who is going to talk about a very interesting and much needed conversation. Hopefully he will start around increased cyber risk during COVID-19, considering all of us are working from home, and how does this impact business and functionality of business and people and organizations, and how they need to be secure. We will be taking questions after Pankit finishes his presentation, which will go on for 20-25 minutes, and we'll take questions. In the meantime, you have any clarification and everything, you can keep chatting in the chat box, put your questions in the Q&A section. And now I will hand it over to Pankit to introduce himself and take the session forward.
Thank you, Ashna. Thank you, Ascent fellow members. It's always a pleasure to reconnect with the team. Unfortunately, we live in some tough times. I would have loved to do this in person, over a drink, I guess. That huddle that we used to have, I'm missing those, Ashna. I'd love to do some of those. But nevertheless, the idea with today's session was to kind of give our own perspective of what we are seeing right now in the industry. But before that, let me give a quick background of who I am. Pankit Desai, raised in Ahmedabad, found my calling in Mumbai. Been with Ascent now for over 4 years, have an amazing experience being part of a great group of friends who become more like family these days. A lot of shoulders to lean on, especially in these tough times when you find yourself alone. We started this company. I'm a first generation entrepreneur. So having spent my entire life in the corporate world, Secure Tech, our startup, has been a great experience for me. And without the fellow cohort members who themselves, some of them are first time entrepreneurs and some are kind of veterans, has become a great source of strength and understanding that has helped us right to this last few years, and more so now in the last few weeks and months, so to say. So without further ado, let me get into the session. What I will do is kind of walk you through what we are seeing in the marketplace, and then kind of go from there. I guess this one, a lot of us would have seen this movie, was my favorite, is my favorite. This character portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio was a gentleman called as Frank Abagnale Jr. A fraudster, so to say, did an amazing, had a great run, so to for almost about 10 years, writing checks and encashing it when the checks still did not have MICR and there was no automatic clearing. He becomes an FBI informer, and then he becomes an FBI consultant. And he said something very interesting, which I always try and kind of get it to the CEOs when I talk to them about this subject, is that security is not about technology. Security is generally about set of things that happen because someone does something stupid, right? So more often than not, it is the basics and the hygiene that kind of get you like a gotcha moment for each organization. Just before the call started, Archana was giving me a point of view on how Ascent has become a target. And I was just joking with her that, hey, you have become a big brand now, right? So if you're a big brand, there is someone always interested in going after you. We work with a very, very small bank whose address I could not find the first time I ended up had to go to the headquarters. Moment we started security monitoring them, I suddenly realized that someone from North Korea was going after them. I was wondering if I could not find the physical address of that bank, how the hell did these guys find them, right? So that's how it ends up happening. Moment you start becoming something worth going after, you will have a set of attacks coming your way. Ruchika, if you can get the first poll up. If you get a chance, guys, I just wanted to understand a digital transformation journey for each of you. So if you can take a few minutes and just give your point of view. Okay. Across the board, when we see this poll, whenever I've done this survey, it is invariably the case that you find yourself in a situation where, when I talk to the CEOs, for each of them, digital transformation is how they see their business survive and grow, right? So I think 5 out of 6 that had responded to the survey mentioned that for them, digital transformation is absolutely essential. The reason I bring it up is that this is where the fundamental shift is happening across industry. And I picked 2 of the most diverse ones. You on the top is the agriculture industry, which was forever looking like manual, labor intensive, and now agri-tech is the mantra that everyone is talking about. And at the bottom is obviously been a very tech intensive industry, the financial segment. But even there, the legacy banks are being given a run for their money by the fintech startups. So whether you are the legacy industry or you are the next generation industry, you got to be ready for digital transformation. And what it basically means is that for the CEOs, the pressure has been significantly high to ensure that they go down this journey because their neighbors are doing it, their friends are doing it, their peers are doing it. So transformation is something that you do not have a choice but to adopt if you have to stay relevant. So if you had gone back to the survey, people had talked about top line improvement, bottom line improvement, survival issues. These are things that keep CEOs and owners awake in the night. And the only way they see themselves coming out of the rut is by using digital transformation as a vehicle to change how they exist in the market space. What you need to think about digital transformation is in the context of 3 things. What is it that it means to you from a brand perspective? How are you looking at from a compliance perspective? I'll talk about each of these subjects separately. And what is it from a continuity point of view? I just spoke about, as Ascent becomes a brand, you are part of an attack posture, right? You have a significant digital footprint as in the market space. You become a brand that someone wants to really hamper. We work with a relatively small bank in interior Maharashtra. There are about 10 branches odd. We get a call from the chairman one day saying that there's a line of people outside my branches demanding that we refund the money or we are going to withdraw the money because there's a rumor that there has been a cyber attack and we have been compromised. And we monitor their security, we work with them, and we were wondering, saying that there's no such thing that has happened. We realized that the bank had very recently implemented security, online banking, you had mobile banking, RTGS, IMPs, a bunch of technology was implemented over the last year and a half. And the core banking system had gone down. And because of which people were not able to withdraw money, and the rumor mill started that there's a cyber attack that happened. And mind you, already have the Cosmos Bank issue, the PMC Bank issue, and people are anyway very jittery with the cooperative bank segment. And the first reaction of their depositor was to go and line up behind the bank and get the money out, right? It just so turned out that it was not a security attack, it was a normal infrastructure attack, and we were able to kind of convince them and send out a release and all that. But imagine if it was a cyber security attack, you would have actually had a situation of bank going under, right? So brand becomes very synonymous with how you are being perceived in this transformed world. If you are as much online, then continuity becomes an issue. And now with this privacy becoming a significant challenge, compliance is something that you really have to worry about. This is my pet peeve, very in the context of how we see digital transformation, is the fact of how human beings are being, are being abused through social engineering attack, for lack of a better word, for going after sensitive personal information. And more so now in COVID case, we are seeing significant challenges where people are forced to use their home assets to carry out corporate work, right? Because you had no choice. Suddenly, 24th of March, PM announces that from tomorrow onwards or midnight onwards, you can't go to work. It's complete lockdown. Companies had to scramble to figure out how to start working in the normal course of event now from 25th March onwards. Most of them had no choice but to use their personal assets to carry out corporate work. It is an amazing opportunity if you are a cyber attacker to use social engineering to steal credentials. And that is what is happening now, where people are stealing your user IDs and passwords and going after your corporate asset, because the same machine is being used for personal work, surfing on Netflix, going through sites, doing e-commerce shopping, as well as on the other hand, is being used to carry out your back office transactions, your sales transactions, or whatever the case might be in the specific situation. So human beings and their inability to distinguish between what is legitimate and what is not, when they look at uh, emails that come out that you have won an award, or you have an Amazon parcel that has come to you, and so on and so forth, which is being used for carrying out phishing attacks. What ends up happening is that an attack like this, for more often than not, is all about stealing sensitive information. So again, I'll talk about some statistics later on, but the number of attacks in the last 3 months in India has gone up by about 500%, so 5 times. So most of our customers have seen in the last 12 weeks as many attacks as what they saw in the entire previous year, right? So people are really going after this to steal sensitive information. There are Ascent cohort members who have reached out to me over the last few weeks, the ransomware attacks where the systems have been brought down. And in 2 cases, financial information and financial loss ended up happening for those customers, for the fellow cohort members. So this is actually a fairly serious issue that we are facing right now. And Ruchika, if you can get the second poll up, please. The value will be 100 and so on. This is for less. I is equal to so, thank you. So General Colin Powell, who was the US Secretary of State and also the commander of US forces, made a very nice statement sometime back. It's also attributed to Robert Mueller, who was the FBI, head of FBI. He said there are only 2 types of companies in the world: companies that have been attacked, and the balance are the companies who have been attacked, but they don't know about it. Right? So that's the reality with what we deal with. I just kind of looked around to see in the recent past what has been the kinds of attacks that have happened within the country. And more often than not, most companies feel that, or most CEOs and owners feel that attacks typically happen on large enterprises. It is large banks and insurance companies that they get attacked. But that's not the case. Small, medium, across segments, people have been attacked fairly badly. We have someone from our Ascent members family. They run a BPO organization, and their employee leaves the company and steals the entire data of what they had created over the past 15 years as IP and sells it to the competition. Right? So 15 years worth of work, in terms of they create a lot of metadata and they create a lot of analysis of what they, I'm not at liberty, I'm trying to figure out ways without giving up the company, but information that is very, very sensitive that took them 15 years to assemble. 2 days before the employee was supposed to leave, that employee copies all the information and walks away with it, right? And ends up going to competition. And that's how sensitive and how serious this matter is. They're a very, very small organization, barely about 75, 80 employees, a revenue of not more than about 6, 7 crores. But that is a classic case of an insider leak. Prime Focus Studios up here in Mumbai, they were given the post-processing order for Game of Thrones season 7. 2 employees chose to leak 2 episodes. Each episode costs roughly about 50 to 75 million to HBO to make, and both these episodes got leaked. So insider attack or ransomware attack are something that are very common across industry, more common than what we give it credit for. The other thing that one has to worry about, so on one hand, we have digital transformation that makes your life difficult because you have to survive. Then because you are digitally transforming, you have attackers that come your way. And because you are now susceptible to attacks, you have regulator that tries to come in and step in and take care of citizens' interests. So if you look at the bottom, these are series of notifications by various agencies in India, which are pertaining to the compliance that organizations need to have from a cyber security or a cyber data perspective, right? So whether it is IT Acts, the Data Privacy Act, Companies Act, a lot of these have come in over the last few years, forcing organizations to really figure out how they are going to respond to the cyber challenge that's the part and parcel of life. So that's a vicious cycle, right? So you transform, you have breaches, you have regulator, and you are kind of somewhere stuck in between. So what do you do as CEOs, right? It's time to take control is what I always say. And how you take control is basically you take control by first changing your mindset, right? If I look at this picture, right, and I ask this question, what is it that the brake does as a function in the car? More often than not, the answer comes is that the purpose of the brake in the car is to slow the car down, right? But think of it in a flip way. The whole purpose of a brake in the car is to allow you to go as fast as possible. Because without brake, you will be really worried about a potential accident that could be caused on the road. So you will be forced to drive the car very, very slow. You really do not know that if you had to stop the car immediately, what would you do? So brake actually does that function. Think of security in the same context. In this case, the car is digital transformation. You have to transform to get from point A to point B. You really need to change your organization to become relevant to the marketplace. Moment you transform digitally, you have to worry about security risk. And if you are proactive about security, if you think about security in that context, you have the ability to transform without having to worry about a potential risk to the organization, right? So that's how, as a CEO, I would like to think. From a CEO's perspective, think about the impact of the changes and the security in the context of what it means to your brand. We spoke about it earlier. How are you going to ensure that your brand is going to stay intact? Let's say tomorrow you're working with so again, we work with another cohort company. They process information on behalf of their customers. There was a security attack that happened because of which their systems got compromised and the customers' information got compromised. Now they did a very good job and kind of came out of it fairly quickly. But imagine the customer of this cohort member, what level of trust deficit this would have created for them that their sensitive data got leaked because of the process inadequacy on the cohort member's side, right? So brand impact is significantly high. Compliance impact. So this company had signed up a certain set of compliance with the customer. That got impacted, they have to take penalty. If you have a ransomware attack, more likely than not, you will actually have a system that goes down. You will not be able to continue and carry out your activity. And in some cases, you might even lose your critical assets, right? So how do you start? You start by asking key questions. And the reason why, and I was glad to see when that question was asked earlier, whose domain is security falling under? I was very glad to see it falling under the CEOs and the CEOs or the owner's domain. The reason why it is essential is that as owner, so let's say I always say that as a SN member, as an entrepreneur, my background was primarily, I come from a sales and operations background. My partner is a techie, so his background has been tech. Both of us spend a lot of time trying to understand financials, operations. We try to understand the legal and compliance requirements. These were not comfort areas. Know whether the answers that we are getting on the other side are legitimate enough. Otherwise, technical people will understand technical language, will talk to us in that language. Very difficult for us to know whether we are able to mitigate the risk or not. Right? How do you do that? You basically focus on people, process, and technology. That's the security triad, as they call it, right? So make sure that once you understand the critical questions to ask, what is it that we are doing from a people point of view, right? So if you're a manufacturing company, safety and security becomes a very big issue on the plant, right? So you will have various hoardings and posters everywhere talking about plant safety. You need to wear a helmet, you need to keep a safe distance, you need to make sure that if you're touching the machine, if you're opening the machine, the power has to be switched off. A lot of these time is spent to make sure that people do not do anything stupid that may result into a issue. Same thing, you will have a set of processes on the manufacturing plant. You have to think exactly the same about cyber risk. If you're getting an email from an unknown source, please don't open. If you're going to a website that looks fishy, don't go to the website. If someone is sending an email to you saying that we are changing our financial information, please send the money to a new address. Do not react to it. Have a process by which you verify through another channel, right? So things like that is where you focus on. And the last part is technology, where you look at various types of components that help you make sure that your overall security is managed well. I'll skip some of this. There was a very nice survey done by Archana and team on COVID. And one thing that struck me, sorry Archana, I kind of borrowed, I snagged some other information. But I think starting, I think April is when Archana had done that survey. And what was heartening to see is that Ascent members have not stopped doing business because COVID happened. We are survivors. We know how to continue to operate in the toughest times. So a lot of the organization, including manufacturing, service, and trade, figured out how to run operations from home, right? And now the things have become such a pass. And I was just asking her about Marico. Marico is not working from office, and at least till August, there is no such diktat of working from office, right? It's a manufacturing company, but they have figured out how to work from home, right? So it doesn't matter which segment you are in, but work from home is going to be reality. And going forward, let's say we ourselves have given up some of the office space because we believe work from home is far more productive. It is very cost efficient. So why don't we take advantage of this new reality that is coming up, and we can really reduce the cost for all of us. But the downside is that the number of security attacks have just gone through the roof. Now you have people who are working from home, unfortunately not adequately protected by security, because in the original context, you were sitting in the office and you have very, very strong security capabilities surrounding all these assets. Suddenly you are being forced to expose all of these to laptops and desktops that are coming over the internet and accessing the same set of assets. That has become a significant security risk for all of us. So it is important for us to understand that there is a significant driver from a productivity improvement, and right now maybe because there is no other choice and we are forced to work from home, but it is also an open field for attackers. If you look at some of the recent coverage, the one in the center has been released by Delhi Police. Significant number of information sites around COVID are coming up. Most of these are not legitimate, and they are sites that are typically targeting people or targeting the curiosity of the people. So I'm very interested in knowing whether there is a COVID case in my neighborhood. There are sites that purportedly came up that you put your PIN code number and it will start giving you the information of what's happening, and all that was hoax information. But the idea was the moment you click on that slide, it will download a piece of software and starts monitoring your behavior, right? People are giving free Netflix, free Amazon, this, nothing, there's no free world, right? This all is chargeable, the charge is you. So that's what ends up happening. Last but one slide. So what do you do as an organization? This is the only technical slide in the whole thing. All I would ask and urge my fellow cohort members to do is to look at few things from a hygiene standpoint. If you are forced to use your employees' machines to work from home, at least make sure that you have basic security hygiene in place. Please buy a cheap antivirus, if nothing else. A lot of free antiviruses are available, even if you cannot afford that one. Please make sure that are getting implemented. Please make sure that you do not use any Windows 7 or lower machines or XP. Very, very dangerous at this point of time to use those machines. Please make sure that all of these machines are properly patched. And for those who do not know what patch means, is that if you're using an iPhone or an Android, ever so often a new version comes in with newer bells and whistles. The version update has two functions. One is a new set of functionality that the software manufacturer would have released, but more often than not, they fix security problems. So for every piece of software that is existing on that machine, whether it is Adobe or whether it's Google Chrome or whether it's Microsoft Office or your operating system, please make sure that you're updating the patches so that you do not have a problem because of a security risk. Please make sure that your communication between that device and your corporate network is secured through a VPN. There are a lot of free open source VPN available. Please buy those. Please make sure that your servers on which you're hosting your critical information. So there is someone that I know who is in background screening business. Because of this work from home and because his servers were not viable, he was not able to do that. He moved his infrastructure to a local hosting provider. And within 2 days, his entire data was stolen and a link left there with a Bitcoin information saying that you need to put Bitcoins, I think what's 1.5 lakh rupees equivalent, if you want the data back. So this was not ransomware. They actually stole the data. They wiped the entire hard disk and put just one file saying that this is the only file, click on it and this is what it comes out. So make sure that your data centers, hosted or otherwise, you make sure that they are properly secured, they are patched, they're hardened. And your network security, I'm very, very surprised. We started working with another small cooperative bank a few months back. And we started working and they did not even have a basic firewall in place. Imagine that's an organization that is supposed to protect your money. So please install a basic firewall. It costs 20,000 rupees. In the scheme of things, not much. Please ensure that that firewall is configured properly. At least for now, if you do not have any international business, you're not doing any business outside of India, please block all traffic coming from outside of India. A lot of traffic these days is coming from China, North Korea, Pakistan. They are hell-bent on screwing us more after the Galvan Valley issue. So please make sure that we do this basic hygiene. Happy to support all of you or any of you. I will have Archana send out my email IDs and credentials. Please reach out to me if you need any help. But I just want to end with this message. It is better to deal with cybersecurity than adversity. Because adversity, in this case, more often than not, you'll be bolting your doors after the horses has left the stable. So more often than not, post a security breach, you're only trying to douse the fire. The damage is already done. So it's better to be proactive and to take a set of measures. With that, I'll stop sharing and happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Pankit. It's left us very worried on how we look at data and what we are doing to protect it. Even a small organization like Ascent, we do have a lot of data that we don't want to be exposed to people. Anyways, on that note, we have a few questions which have come in. I will direct them at towards you. One is from Rishabh Todi. Can you please explain for dummies a varying degree of attacks from minor to major, types of attacks, what they mean and all that? So if you can like dumb it down for people to understand exactly what these attacks are.
So a minor attack, so let's say, okay, you have your front desk office, a receptionist, let's say, and let's say his or her machine got compromised. Now, that specific event, if it was detected there and there itself, it's a minor attack in the sense is that there's a very little likelihood of something very sensitive being there on that machine. So at worst, you would have just formatted the disk and be done with it. But more often than not, that receptionist machine, which is part of your network, has been compromised to identify critical assets. So what ends up happening is that the malware that might have come into that machine is now moving within your environment, trying to find a more critical asset to go after. Now it could be your Tally, it could be your ERP, it could be your CEO's machine, it could be your finance department's machine. It is trying to find an asset for which you are willing to pay, right? So the first thing that happened was a minor attack. The second, when it actually hits something very sensitive, it ends up becoming a major attack. Now these are attacks where they're going after financial information or some theft around it. You could have, as in the case with one of the companies in the cohort, they had a ransomware attack and so these guys work with international companies. Their servers were brought down and they had ransomware attack. They could not carry out their business operations. So for a few days, the operations were shut down. Now that would be a major piece of attack. Now even that attack would have started with something small. Over a period of time, these guys figured out something and shut down the whole network. So in the first case, they were stealing information. In second case, they brought the systems down and they wanted you to pay money to bring the systems back. It's almost like a blackmail, right? So really, they encrypt a system, and unless you pay money, I'm not going to go after it. If you are an e-commerce site, a major attack could be that they could do what is called as a denial of service. So think of it like this. We understand this very well in Mumbai. A road is 8 feet, supposed to handle 2 vehicles at a time, one to go and one to come. Let's say there are now 50 vehicles trying to go and come, and you are a shop at the end of the road. Because 50 vehicles are blocking it, the legitimate user or legitimate customer of yours, who's the 51st vehicle, is not allowed to come in. So think of it like in an e-commerce site. If suddenly 50,000 users are trying to log into your site, and the 51 user, who's the most legitimate user, suddenly is not able to enter, that is called denial of service. So they basically do not want that site to work. They do not want a transaction to carry out. Now that would be a major attack for an e-commerce site.
Yes. Another question from Viren Reshamwala is Windows Defender good enough as an antivirus?
In the scheme of things, yes. Sitting where we are today, I would say it's okay. If you can afford, then please do not use it. It's a poor man's version of a virus, antivirus. So it's okay. If you have nothing, use it. If you can afford, then buy a slightly better version.
Next question is, what sorts of anomalies would you like to identify, would look for to identify a compromised system?
So any anomalies has two aspects to it. One is a technical aspect, other is a process aspect. So let's say, I'll give you an example of my own company. Every time my partner used to travel, every time, it's stopped now for the last few months, but otherwise, every time he used to travel, when he was in the flight is when we would get a message either to my CFO or to me asking for money, right? Saying that, hey, send. So imagine now, so they know who he is. First of all, they know the name, they know the email ID, they know he's got an iPhone because it says send from my iPhone at the bottom. They know he's taking a flight. They know that the flight has taken off, right? So fair amount of intel has been gathered onto you for them to then send out an email. Now we are a security company, so we're anyway paranoid, but the instruction given to the organization is that anything, we have a certain behavior. We will not send an email for a financial transaction. We will call you. We will walk up to you, right? So that's an anomaly of a behavior. So you can identify for yourself what an anomaly from a behavior perspective looks like. Now there are technological anomalies. So technological anomaly would be, why is the CEO's machine talking to that server? It has never spoken to it in his lifetime. Why is that communication happening? Why is the receptionist machine talking to tele machine? Now that means that that machine of receptionist has been compromised and they're going on a tele machine to siphon off data. Now that second part is slightly difficult for layman to pull it off. So you will need some technologies around that. But the first part is far more easier because it's more process driven.
Okay. Next question is from Shankaraman. We work on Google Apps and our ERP is a cloud-based software. How can we implement a VPN for such application for our team?
So if you are a Google, if you are on a cloud, at least have multi-factor authentication enabled, right? So VPN works if it is coming to your data center. With Google, if you're on any cloud infrastructure, it is not possible. The only way you can do, let's say, a VPN for a cloud application is that you divert the entire traffic to your data center. So the way it will work is, you will not allow the cloud to be accessed from anywhere. The only way you can access it if it was to come through your data center. So the way it will work is, you will have a VPN connectivity from your device to your data center. And from your data center, you can go to the cloud application. Now that is financially not viable. It is technologically also doesn't make sense. The best way to go to cloud is direct. So in that case, at least enable multi-factor authentication. Now we all are in India familiar with OTPs, right? So it is two-factor authentication. Now you log into a bank website, it is asking for a user ID password and you get an OTP. That is two-factor. So you need two things for it to be authenticated. That's what multi-factor means. You can have two things, you can have three things, you can have biometric. There are various technologies available. You can enable them. So at least if someone steals the user ID password without the second factor, you are not going to get impacted. All of these cloud providers also have monitoring services. See if you can afford it and take it, because it can then throw alerts. So let's say it can say that suddenly, Shankar, we are seeing for your environment, majority of your logins is to happen from the Mumbai region. We are now seeing people from Nigeria logging in or trying to log in. Do you have anything like happening there, right? So you can take that specific service from the cloud hosted providers. They will be able to give you some sort of a coverage around that as well.
There is an audio question and somebody's raised their hand, Jayesh Dedia. Can we enable that, Ruchika, so that he can ask the question directly to Pankit?
Yeah, turn them. Mr. Jayesh Dedia? We cannot hear you if you are on mute.
Jayesh, you're on mute, so if you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Is that happening?
No, it's mute.
No. So I suggest we move to the next question and reach out to Jayesh to get him back. Our next question is from Jetan Parekh. If we are using G Suite, then is it required to have firewall set up to safeguard our data?
No. So if you are on a cloud, then firewall is not required. You can have, as I just mentioned earlier, so cloud setups go through a separate environment itself. Now Google itself has a cloud service. So if you choose, you can take that. But the best way to work with cloud is to have the multi-factor authentication, restriction of users. One thing that I've noticed quite often with cloud applications, and I'm not sure how big your organization Jatin is that people miss removing employees who have left the companies and remove their credentials from cloud. So again, I know of a company within the cohort, I think about 50 employees.
Sorry, Ruchika, can you go on mute, please? There's a disturbance at your end. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Pankit.
Yeah, so there are 50, 60 employees company and completely cloud enabled. What ended up happening is that, so let's say today is my last day of work, 5 o'clock, I'm supposed to leave the company, it's Friday evening. Till the next Monday morning, my IDs are not removed. So I'm getting 2 days as an employee who has left the organization, having access to these cloud systems, right? So in a smaller organization, let us be very paranoid if you're using any cloud applications to remove access privileges immediately as the person leaves the organization, right? Because that's one area that you might potentially land up with a situation that could create a risk for you. So one, make sure that you have this multi-factor authentication and you are ensuring that. Two, take a service that ensures that you understand who's logging on from where. Three, make sure that if someone is leaving the company, you remove the access rights that in themselves. Four, within the same cloud application, make sure that people have access to only those modules that they're required. So the finance department should not know sales, sales should not know finance, and vice versa. So some basic hygiene, if you can do, that will serve you very well.
Okay. At this point, I would like to take feedback from attendees on what you thought about the session so far. Do not go away. We're taking more questions, but I'd like to put the feedback now, and we will continue asking questions to Pankit as we go on. So please, there is a feedback form right in front of you. Kindly take that. We're going to keep that on for 30 seconds. Ruchika, let us know when you have 30 seconds and when your feedback is coming. Kindly take the feedback. It will help us to improve the sessions and, of course, feedback for the speakers terms of improving sessions. Yeah, done?
Done, Archana. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Pankit, more questions. What are the difference between cybersecurity in the cloud and on premises according to you?
So security is security. I mean, in the cloud, the advantage that you will have is that you will have someone, I mean, you have a much more stronger, capable organization thinking about security and offering that as part of the package. Versus if you're doing it on your premise, then you'll have to think all the realms and areas and make sure that those gets covered as part of your offering. The challenge, however, in cloud is that unless, like I was just explaining, unless you know what to ask for and you have the capability to ask the right questions, you may end up buying the bare minimum service, as I was mentioning the case of someone that I know who took this cloud service from a third-party infrastructure provider, and all he took was a hosting capability, nothing else. And someone came, attacked, stole all the data away, and that's it. And when we went to the cloud provider, he said, no, but you never asked for it. You only asked for hosting. Right now, as an owner, CEO, you may not be in a position to ask the right set of questions. So either on-premise or off-premise, or on-premise or cloud, the ability to ask the right questions doesn't go away. If you are cloud, then obviously they have the capability to offer you the right thing. If it's on-premise, then you'll have to buy everything and make it work for you.
Okay. Next question is 5 best practices according to you to consider in order to avoid a possible malware attack.
5 is difficult to identify, lots of them, but think of it this way. There are 5 areas of technology stack. You have the endpoints, so endpoints being your laptops, desktop servers. You have network, you have data, you have application, and you have users. These are the 5 pillars of how anyone looks at technology. Each of them will have to have a certain set of best practices. So if you are users, restricting what they can and cannot do within the organization, very important. If they are users, making them security aware, very important, right? So you will have a best practice for each of the groups. If you are users, making sure that they have user ID, passwords, complicated passwords, so that will all be part of the user realm. Then you have devices. So on devices, make sure that you have an antivirus, at least you are patching the device, you are making sure that all useless softwares are removed if the asset is owned by you. So this will be the best practices as far as that endpoint or the device is concerned. If your network, then you will say implement firewall, a certain set of rules. You have a certain set of perimeter defense that you'll put in. So like that, each layer has to be protected for that attack to not go through. So if you just focus on one and not the other, you will expose yourself to a potential risk.
Okay. Good. I don't think we have more questions. If there are any more questions for Pankit, please do put it in the Q&A or raise your hand. You can ask an audio question. I don't know if Jiten is still around.
We have a raise of hand by Mr. Viren Reshamwala.
Can we enable that and ask a audio question?
Yes.
Yeah. Who's that?
Yeah. Hi. This is Viren. Am I audible?
Yeah, Ruchika,
yes,
silent, please. Yeah, Viren, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So, hi, Pankit. This is Viren here. I also am from the IT industry. So, to that extent, I do understand the importance of security. And it's a very well made out presentation at the right time. And thank you for that. Being in the industry, I'm always paranoid about the potential attacks. So I have 3 areas where I would like your quick feedback. So one is the biggest a potential threat that I'm always paranoid about is the phishing attacks, because I am on a thin client, and any user clicking an attachment unknowingly will directly impact my server.
Yes.
So that's the biggest thing that I'm paranoid about. And second thing is about the ransomware. So I mean, what can I do to protect from this? Is there any quick fix?
So the first one, okay, so thank you for bringing it up. So as far as phishing attacks are concerned, there are 2-3 elements to identifying them. So there are technologies available that try and block some of these emails. So there are Proofpoint, even if you're using O365, if you're using Google Suite, all of them have these softwares that try. So they'll have these keywords which you look for, this Nigerian kind of an attacks. So they'll keep identifying some patterns and behaviors that try and to some degree block those emails from hitting the user's mailbox. You can look at it and we can offline converse on that subject. The second part, which is I think more important, is to educate your users. So what you do and what you might want to do is, again, I don't know how big your organization is, maybe have your IT person send out emails acting like a phishing campaign. So what we do when we train our people is we send out emails saying, so we will either time it with, let's say, the big $1 billion sale that Flipkart and Amazon have. We will do it along with our typical appraisal cycle. We will do it along with our, let's say, an annual day event. So we will look at various things that are in top of the mind recall for employees. And we will send out emails which will have the links, right? The email will either be coming from me, if it's an internal company related stuff, or email looking like me, or it will come from pseudo activities like Amazon and Flipkart. And the idea is to see how many people click on those links. You collect that information and then you counsel the individual saying that, hey, you know what, if you had actually done and clicked this, because you've now done it. Now, otherwise what happens is when you go and tell someone that, hey, you know, you are going and doing this activity, or you like to do this activity, everyone will say, no, main to nahi karta. I am too smart. But when it is backed by data, which says that of the 50 employees, 30 ended up clicking on that email, is a good enough sign for you and people to know that they can be susceptible. So in fact, when we ran our first campaign, we are a security company. When we ran our first campaign, 20% of our employees clicked on these emails. Right? So in 300 people, that is 60 people who went and clicked on emails that they should not have clicked. Right? So something like that. So phishing campaigns can be run within the organization to be able to first understand and baseline the behavior, then counsel the individuals, do training activities. And if you do it every 6 months, then you will know if your people are improving or not. So that's one good way to get a handle of the problem statement. The second you talked about is ransomware. Now, ransomware can be stopped 2 ways. One, if you have a good antivirus, it generally should work in ransomware, but more often than not, ransomware also comes through phishing emails. So that's how they typically kind of infect. So unless you have a very strong security monitoring capability, so typically the way ransomware works is that they infect some machine, and that machine then talks to a command and control server anywhere in Ukraine or Russia or China or wherever the attacker is coming from. And the instruction given to that piece of software on the machine is to find a sensitive asset. So it keeps moving within the organization to find that sensitive asset. So if you know how to monitor the traffic, if you know that why is this device talking to that server in Ukraine, or why that server is talking to that IP in China, if you have that capability, then you can stop the attack in flight. So ransomware attack typically is not a 0-1 attack. It is not like someone throws a bomb and it blasts. So it is almost like a typical terrorist attack where someone comes and does recce, identifies soft spot, takes a photograph, and then 4 months later an attack might happen. So in this case, you will have a few hours, few weeks, few days, depending on what the complexion of attack is, before the attack gets carried out. So if you know how to identify patterns, you will be able to stop the attack.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, that was.
Okay. Thank you, Viren. Next question is it essential to have a password policy between employees? If yes, then how frequently should the credentials be changed?
Oh, absolutely, that should be password policy. And great you bring it up because I've seen companies having generic passwords, user IDs and passwords. It's admin. I mean, they're the most easiest ones to guess, right? So please have a password policy, because the only way you will be able, and there are cases where passwords are stuck on the machine. Specifically in shop floor, the passwords are left on the machine because shift supervisors will come. They want to use the same machine and the same password. and the passwords are happily available. So please have a unique password for each. Ideally, change every quarter. I mean, at least. Earlier the better, but change at least every quarter. You need to have a policy, not to use the last 5 passwords. It can't be part of your name. It has to be a combination of characters and special characters and numbers and capital. So some complicated stuff that you can think for yourself. This is a problem that is a tough one to solve, because generally speaking, people want to have easy passwords. It's very difficult to remember difficult passwords, right? So, but there's no other choice. Unfortunately, that's the only way you'll be able to secure your devices.
Okay, so we seem to be out of questions as well, Pankit. At this moment, we'd like to thank you for sure. But is there any last words that you want to talk with before we wind up?
I think so. I mean, first, I'm glad with the variety of the questions that are asked. So at least that seems that the understanding of the problem statement exists. The thing that I would say is that it is not as complicated as it is being made to sound, right? So there is, yes, definitely a technology element to it, but hope people on the call would have understood most of it is fairly standard basic English that I spoke on, right? So it is, if you as a CEO ask the right questions, you will get the right answers. So if you're using a Google Suite or you're using an Azure or O365 or anything, you can ask your service provider this exact same questions, that, hey, please tell me how you're going to stop ransomware on my environment. Hey, please help me understand how passwords cannot be abused. This is a question that doesn't need any technical capability, but you are sensitive about the fact that that specific device or server or data is critical for me, and I need to make sure that that is adequately protected. Ask the right questions and you shall get the answer.
Thank you so much, Pankit, for today's session. And thank you to all the attendees.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.